The War Council chamber smelled of ozone and burnt metal, residual evidence of the last Chthari orbital strike. The room was dim, lit only by the flickering holographic display in the center of the war table. Red symbols outnumbered blue 100-1. Commander Rourke Voss leaned forward, resting his hands against the steel surface. His knuckles were white. He was no stranger to impossible odds, but this was suicide. The terms are clear, Admiral Cato said, his voice cold but edged with resignation. Supreme Warlord Zalter has issued a formal challenge. Single combat. You versus him. He exhaled. Winner decides the fate of our forces. A beat of silence. Voss glanced at the others. Generals, officers, political envoys, every one of them knew the truth. Zalter had never lost a fight. Ever. This is a trap, General Vasquez muttered. They want us to think we have a chance. They're toying with us. Voss turned toward the display. The Chthari Dominion, a reptilian empire stretching across hundreds of systems, had crushed everything in its path. They didn't negotiate. They eradicated. Their creed was simple, only the strong had the right to exist. Of course it's a trap, Voss said finally. His voice was rough, deliberate. But it's the only move we have left. Heads turned toward him. They've already won in every conventional sense, he continued. We're outnumbered, outgunned, and outmaneuvered. If we refuse, they wipe us out anyway. If we accept and I die, same result. He exhaled sharply. But if I win? Cato scoffed. You won't. Voss grinned. It wasn't humor, it was something darker. Maybe, he admitted. But Zalter doesn't issue these challenges lightly. He's a conqueror, not a butcher. He wants to make a point. If I put up a real fight, if I make him bleed, that's enough to plant a seed of doubt in every alien race watching. And that seed? It grows. No one spoke. Then Vasquez leaned forward, eyes narrowed. So you're not fighting for victory. You're fighting for fear. Voss nodded. Zalter's strength isn't just physical. It's the legend. The myth. The inevitability of his victories. He tapped the table. If I can break that inevitability, even a little, humanity stops being an easy target. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But it buys us time. A long pause. Then Cato leaned back, crossing his arms. You realize no human in history has ever faced a Chthari warlord in single combat and lived? Voss's smile was razor-sharp. Then I guess I'll be making history. 2 hours later. The Chthari dreadnought Vorcrash loomed like a leviathan above the battlefield, its hull blackened with the scars of 1,000 conquests. Humanity's last stronghold, Outpost Vega, sat below, broken and barely holding on. Inside the Chthari throne chamber, Voss stepped into the dueling pit. The walls pulsed with organic metal, shifting in patterns that mimicked the slow breathing of a predator. High above, hundreds of alien spectators gathered in the viewing arena, their eyes glowing in the dark. The fight would be broadcast to every Dominion world, a spectacle of human extinction. The air vibrated as the chamber's massive gates opened. Zalter entered. 9 feet of scaled muscle. Armor that looked more ceremonial than functional, but on him, it was functional. His claws gleamed like razors, and his golden eyes burned with amusement. He carried no weapon. He didn't need one. Voss clenched his jaw. He had fought aliens before, twice his size, stronger, faster. But Zalter wasn't just a warrior. He was an apex predator. The warlord tilted his head, studying Voss like an anomaly. Then he spoke, his voice deep and resonant. You humans are fascinating, he rumbled. So fragile. So stubborn. He took another step. You think this duel matters? That I will spare your people if you impress me? A low chuckle. I won't. Voss rolled his shoulders. I don't expect you to. Zalter raised a brow. Then why accept? Voss exhaled, slow and steady. His heartbeat remained even. His mind calculated distances, attack patterns, weak points. The Chthari were stronger, but they had one fatal flaw. They thought like warriors. Humans thought like survivors. He met Zalter's gaze, unflinching. Because you don't know what fear is. A pause. The chamber grew still. Then Zalter grinned. Show me. The duel began. A single bell chime. The signal to fight. Zalter moved first, closing the distance in a heartbeat. His speed was unnatural, a blur of muscle and scale. His first strike was not an attack. It was an execution. Voss ducked. Not by reflex. By calculation. The air screamed as Zalter's claws shredded the space where his head had been a fraction of a second earlier. No wasted movement. No unnecessary steps. Voss pivoted and struck, fast, precise, aiming for a nerve cluster beneath the warlord's jaw. His fist connected. Pain shot through his arm like he'd punched solid steel. Zalter barely flinched. But he noticed. The warlord's smile widened. Good. The next strike came faster. Voss dodged left, narrowly avoiding a blow that would have shattered his ribs. He countered with a low sweep. Zalter leapt over it effortlessly. Power versus precision. Strength versus strategy. Zalter attacked relentlessly, his movements fluid, controlled. Every strike could have ended the fight. Voss knew it. But he wasn't here to match strength. He was here to break rhythm. Dodge. Counter. Step back. Bait. Feint. Make the warlord react. Make him think. Make him hesitate. And then, Voss saw it. A fraction of a second. A single misstep. Zalter overcommit, expecting Voss to dodge the wrong way. Voss didn't. He lunged, aiming a reinforced combat knife straight for the exposed flesh beneath the warlord's armpit. Zalter twisted, barely avoiding a lethal wound. But the blade cut. Not deep. Not enough to maim. But enough to bleed. A drop of dark green dripped onto the floor. The chamber went silent. And for the first time in his life, Supreme Warlord Zalter took a step back. Voss grinned through bloody teeth. Surprised? Zalter's expression didn't change. But something in his gaze hardened. Then, without a word, he moved. And this time, he wasn't playing. Cliffhanger ending. Zalter's next strike was a hammer blow to Voss's ribs. The impact lifted him off his feet and sent him crashing into the ground, vision flashing white. He tasted blood. Zalter loomed above him, shadows swallowing his towering frame. This, the warlord said, voice low, dangerous, absolute, is where you die. Voss coughed, spitting red onto the arena floor. He rolled onto one knee, breath ragged, eyes blazing with something far worse than defiance. He grinned. Big mistake. Pain was nothing new to Commander Rourke Voss. But this was something else. His ribs screamed, his lungs fought for air, and his vision blurred as he forced himself onto one knee. Zalter loomed over him, a living monolith of power and precision, eyes gleaming with something cold and merciless. The warlord extended a clawed hand, fingers twitching. Your body fails you, human. Your fight is over. Voss coughed, spit blood onto the arena floor, and gave a lopsided grin. Over? He pressed a trembling fist to his knee, pushing himself upright, bones protesting with every movement. Buddy, I haven't even gotten started. Zalter's expression barely changed, but the briefest flicker of amusement crossed his face. Fascinating. You understand you cannot win. Voss cracked his neck. I understand a lot of things. He exhaled, steadying his stance. Like the fact that you just took a step back. The warlord's gaze darkened. There it was. Doubt. A single drop of green Chthari blood still glistened on the ground where Voss had cut him. Just a cut. Not enough to matter. Not enough to change the course of the fight. But it had mattered. Because Zalter, the undefeated, the supreme warlord, had stepped back. And he knew it. The chamber remained deathly silent, the alien spectators watching, waiting. They had expected an execution. A spectacle of human fragility against Chthari's supremacy. But now? Now, they were seeing something else. Voss rotated his shoulders, ignoring the pain lancing through his body. "Tell me, Zalter," he said, voice calm despite the fire in his ribs, "how many times have you fought someone weaker than you?" Zalter frowned. "Irrelevant." Voss took a step forward. "Is it?" Another step. Zalter's claws flexed, but he held his ground. "You fight like a warlord," Voss continued. "Like a warrior who's spent centuries knowing no one in this galaxy could ever touch him." He tilted his head. "Must be nice." Zalter narrowed his eyes. "You speak as if this changes your fate." Voss exhaled. "It does. Because I don't fight like you." His fingers curled into fists. "I fight like a human." And then he moved. A heartbeat. That's all the time he had. Zalter had the reach, the power, the speed. But Voss had adaptability. He lunged forward, not to strike, but to force a reaction. Zalter, trained to face warriors, instinctively shifted his weight to counter. Voss dropped low, faster than expected, pivoting hard. A sudden shift in movement, unnatural to Chthari combat styles, forced Zalter to adjust. Too late. Voss exploded upward, driving his elbow into the warlord's jaw with a brutal crack. The impact snapped Zalter's head back, his golden eyes widening for a fraction of a second. There. Voss had seen it. Surprise. He pressed the advantage, following with a short, savage hook to Zalter's side, right where he'd drawn blood before. The warlord twisted, absorbing the blow, but now he was reacting. Now, he was thinking. And that was the difference. Humans didn't follow rules. They created them. Zalter recovered fast. Faster than any opponent Voss had ever faced. A brutal counterstrike sent Voss stumbling backward, pain exploding through his shoulder. He barely had time to twist before another strike came, razor-sharp claws slicing through air where his throat had been. Voss ducked, rolled, came up breathing hard. Zalter exhaled slowly. "You are not weak." Voss wiped blood from his lips. "I know." A flicker of something almost like respect crossed Zalter's expression. "But neither are you strong." Then he attacked. Faster than before. More precise. No arrogance now. No playing with his food. "He's done testing me." Voss barely dodged the first strike. The second grazed his side, tearing through his tactical armor like paper. He bit down on a curse and retaliated with a quick strike to the warlord's knee. Zalter shifted, caught his wrist mid-strike, and crushed. Voss gritted his teeth as bones strained under impossible pressure. Then, instinct. Training. Desperation. He twisted sharply, using the warlord's own grip as leverage, and drove a brutal knee into Zalter's ribs. The warlord released him, snarling. Voss staggered back, breath coming in sharp bursts. Every muscle burned. Every nerve screamed. But he wasn't dead. And that meant he could still fight. The crowd had changed. Before, they had been murmuring. Expecting a swift, decisive end. Now, there was silence. Because no one had ever lasted this long against Zalter. The warlord exhaled slowly. He didn't look angry. He didn't look frustrated. He looked curious. "You are different." Voss flexed his aching fingers. "So I've been told." Zalter watched him for a long moment. Then, almost as an afterthought, he said, "You could have been Chthari." Voss barked a short laugh, despite the pain. "Yeah, well, we humans don't really do the whole subjugation and conquest thing." Zalter gave a slow, deliberate smile. No, his golden eyes gleamed. You do something worse. And then he moved. Zalter wasn't holding back anymore. He closed the distance in an instant, striking with terrifying force. Voss barely evaded, his ribs screamed in protest. He ducked a clawed swipe, countered with a desperate jab, but Zalter anticipated it. The warlord caught his punch. Then slammed him into the ground. White-hot pain shot through Voss's back. His vision darkened at the edges. Zalter loomed above him, exhaling slowly. You fight well, human. Voss coughed, blood pooling at the corner of his mouth. He tried to rise. Zalter placed a heavy boot on his chest, pinning him. But you cannot win. Voss sucked in a shallow breath, his mind racing. He had landed blows. He had made the warlord bleed. But that wasn't enough. Think. Zalter was stronger. Faster. A perfect warrior. But he wasn't perfect. His people were creatures of order. Of tradition. Voss's gaze flicked to the warlord's stance. A firm, grounded posture, predictable. The corners of Voss's lips twitched. I gotta say, he murmured, voice rasping, I thought the strongest warrior in the galaxy would be better. Zalter's eyes narrowed. You mock me? Voss grinned, ignoring the blood in his mouth. No, I just expected more. He saw it. A flicker of pride. And then, Zalter moved to finish it. That's when Voss acted. A desperate feint. A sudden shift in weight. A last-ditch maneuver only a human would attempt. His body screamed in protest, but his mind remained razor-sharp. One opening. That's all I need. And as Zalter struck, Voss took it. Cliffhanger ending. The crowd gasped. Zalter froze. And in the silence, a single drop of green Kthari blood hit the arena floor. Voss, breathing hard, his body wrecked, grinned through bloodied teeth. Checkmate. The arena was silent. Hundreds of alien eyes fixated on the impossible, supreme warlord Zalter, the undefeated, the unchallenged, standing with a fresh wound carved into his side. A wound inflicted by a human. Voss swayed on his feet, blood running from his split lip, ribs throbbing with every shallow breath. His knife dripped with dark green Kthari blood, its steel trembling in his grip. For the first time in centuries, the warlord bled. For the first time in his reign, Zalter had been harmed. And for a moment, a mere fraction of a second, the warlord hesitated. Then, he smiled. A slow, deliberate grin, sharp and predatory. His golden eyes gleamed. You are the first. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the chamber. The first to wound me in single combat. Voss exhaled, tasting blood. There's a first for everything. Zalter took a step forward. The wound didn't slow him. It fueled him. His muscles flexed, his stance shifted, and something in the air changed. The game was over. This wasn't a warlord humoring an inferior opponent anymore. This was a predator acknowledging a worthy kill. Voss barely moved in time. Zalter lunged, faster than before, a blur of raw strength and deadly precision. His claws slashed through the air, missing Voss's throat by inches. Voss ducked, twisted, but the warlord anticipated. A knee, brutal, precise, slammed into Voss's sternum. Pain exploded through his chest. His body lifted off the ground, crashing into the cold, pulsing metal of the arena floor. His lungs refused to work. He rolled, gasping, but Zalter was already on him. A massive hand closed around his throat. Lifted him. Slammed him against the arena wall. The impact rattled his bones. His vision blurred. Zalter tightened his grip. You fought well, he murmured. Better than any lesser species before you. He studied Voss, almost, intrigued. But your body has limits. Your bones break. Your blood runs dry. And he squeezed harder. Do not. Voss choked, clawing at the warlord's iron grip. He could feel his pulse hammering against Zalter's fingers. Darkness crept at the edges of his vision. This was it. Then he saw it. Zalter's stance shifted. Waited. It was small. Almost imperceptible. But it was there. He thinks he's won. That was his mistake. Voss's hand moved, fast, desperate. He jammed his combat knife straight into the warlord's forearm. Zalter snarled. His grip faltered, just for a second. A second was all Voss needed. He twisted, braced against the wall, and drove his knee into the warlord's gut. Zalter stumbled. His grip loosened. Voss ripped free. He hit the ground, gasping for air, vision swimming, body screaming for rest. But rest wasn't an option. Not yet. Zalter recovered instantly. His golden eyes burned with something new. Not anger. Not rage. Excitement. You adapt, he said, voice almost reverent. Voss spat blood. Yeah. We do that. Zalter rolled his shoulders. His massive frame loomed over Voss, casting a shadow that swallowed the dim light of the chamber. You would have made a great Kthari. Voss smiled through bloody teeth. I'd rather die human. The warlord nodded, solemn. Then you shall. And then he attacked. The fight was no longer about proving humanity's strength. It was survival. Zalter struck like a force of nature, every blow faster, sharper, deadlier. He was done playing. Done testing. Voss barely dodged the first strike. The second clipped his shoulder, pain flaring through his body like fire. But pain didn't matter. Pain meant he was alive. He sidestepped, feinted left, twisted around. Zalter tracked him perfectly. No more openings. No more mistakes. Voss gritted his teeth. He needed something. A weakness. A gap. Then he remembered. The first step back. Zalter had stepped back when Voss made him bleed. It wasn't instinctual. It was cultural. The Kthari saw physical damage as a sign of unworthiness. A warlord could not show weakness in combat. Voss inhaled sharply. That was it. Zalter lunged. Voss moved, not to dodge, but to meet the attack head-on. Their bodies collided, bone against steel-hard flesh. The force rattled Voss's teeth. But he didn't stop. He pushed. Zalter expected a retreat. Expected a dodge. He didn't expect Voss to close the distance. Didn't expect Voss to slam his forehead into his face. The impact sent a shockwave through the chamber. Zalter reeled. For the second time that day, he staggered. The audience gasped. Voss capitalized. No hesitation. No mercy. He moved like a man possessed. Knife flashing, fists striking, targeting every weak point he had learned in the last brutal minutes of battle. Zalter roared, retaliated, but Voss didn't stop. He didn't let up. He pressed, pushed, overwhelmed. Made the strongest warrior in the galaxy fight for his life. Then, the final mistake. Zalter, desperate to regain control, overcommit. Voss saw it happen in real time. A fraction of a second. A shift in weight. A gap in defense. Now. Voss drove the combat knife straight into Zalter's throat. The warlord froze. The chamber fell into silence. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Voss twisted the blade. Zalter made a sound, a deep, rumbling exhale. His golden eyes flickered. His legs buckled. Voss pulled the knife free, stepping back as the strongest warrior in the galaxy fell to his knees. The chamber erupted. Shouts. Screams. Disbelief. The Kthari, who had never once seen their supreme warlord kneel in battle, watched in stunned silence. Zalter coughed, dark green blood spilling from his lips. He looked up at Voss, something unreadable in his gaze. You, a ragged breath. are not weak. Voss inhaled sharply, chest heaving. He met the warlord's gaze and spoke the last words Zalter would ever hear. We never were. Then, with one last, final strike, he ended it. The warlord's body hit the ground. Dead. The impossible had happened. Voss turned to the cameras broadcasting the fight across the stars. His voice was rough, raw, filled with something primal. You wanted a reason to fear humanity? He wiped blood from his face, stepping over Zalter's corpse. His eyes burned into the screen. Here it is. The silence following Supreme Warlord Zalter's death was deafening. For the first time in recorded history, a Kthari warlord lay lifeless in the dueling pit, his massive frame sprawled across the cold, pulsing metal. His golden eyes, once filled with arrogance and certainty, were now empty, locked in an expression of disbelief. Voss stood over him, bloodied, broken, but unbowed. His breath was ragged, his body screaming in protest, but none of it mattered. He had won. And the entire galaxy had just witnessed it. The arena, filled with Kthari generals, alien dignitaries, and Dominion loyalists, remained in stunned silence. They had expected an execution. They had expected the inevitable display of human frailty. Instead, they had watched a man stand against a god of war and win. Voss raised his gaze to the high seats, where the Kthari High Command sat, their reptilian faces unreadable. He spat blood onto the floor. Looks like your legend just died. His voice, raw from the fight, carried across the chamber. What happens now? The silence cracked. A low, guttural snarl rippled through the air. One of Zalter's commanders, a massive brute draped in ceremonial war armor, rose from his seat. His eyes burned with fury, his fangs bared. A human has no right to stand over our warlord's corpse. His voice reverberated through the chamber. You are nothing. You are weak. This duel, Voss cut him off, was accepted by your own laws, he said, voice ironclad. Zalter challenged me. He fought me. And he lost. The words struck like a physical blow. The commander flinched, as if the truth itself was an insult. Voss took a slow, deliberate step forward. His body ached, but he ignored it. Your people have ruled for centuries through fear. Through dominance. And now, the strongest warrior you had is lying in a pool of his own blood. He gestured at Zalter's body. So tell me, what does that make you? A murmur rippled through the chamber. Doubt. Voss could see it, feel it. The Kthari, for the first time in their long, war-soaked history, were uncertain. Zalter had been the pillar of their belief in superiority. The unshakable proof that the Dominion was untouchable. And now, he was dead. Voss clenched his fists. This was the moment. The tipping point. He turned his gaze to the Kthari High Command. You have a choice. He exhaled sharply, wiping blood from his brow. You can call me an anomaly. Pretend this never happened. Keep throwing your soldiers at humanity, hoping we go down easy. He stepped closer. His voice lowered, becoming something more dangerous. Or, you can think. A beat of silence. We're not like the other species you've conquered, Voss continued. We don't bow. We don't kneel. And we sure as hell don't forget. His jaw tightened. We're not afraid of you anymore. His next words were slow. Measured. A promise, not a threat. If you come for Earth, we will come for you. The room was still. And then, from the high seats, a voice rang out. This is unacceptable. Voss turned his head. An older Kthari, draped in regal armor, rose to his feet. His scales were a deep violet, an elder, a high-ranking strategist, maybe even a direct advisor to Zalter himself. His expression was unreadable. The Dominion does not recognize defeat from a single duel. His voice was smooth, but laced with tension. Zalter's death, though unexpected, does not change the will of our empire. Voss smirked. That so? The elder's gaze was cold. You have won one battle. The war is far from over. Voss tilted his head. Then why do you sound afraid? A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. The elder's jaw tightened. He hadn't expected that. And neither had the other Kthari. Fear. Doubt. The cracks in their unshakable superiority were spreading. Voss pressed forward. You could keep fighting us. You could send another warlord. Another fleet. Hell, send 1,000. He gestured around. But look at your people. They watched the impossible happen today. They saw your strongest warrior fall. He let the words settle. Let them sink in. And deep down, they're wondering. His voice was softer now, almost mocking. If a single human could do that, what could the rest of them do? The elder's eyes flashed with something sharp. You overestimate your species. Voss exhaled, shaking his head. No. You underestimated us. Silence. Then the elder turned away, his expression hard. This meeting is over. The high command rose from their seats, their movements rigid. The crowd slowly began to disperse, murmurs filling the chamber. It was not a declaration of war. But it was not victory, either. Voss exhaled, rolling his shoulders. His body ached. His ribs throbbed. His limbs felt like lead. But as he looked at Zalter's lifeless body, he knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. Hours later, aboard the human fleet carrier Vanguard. The med bay smelled of antiseptic and burnt circuitry. Voss lay on the medical table, chest wrapped in gauze, a sharp ache pressing against his ribs. He blinked blearily at the ceiling. A familiar voice broke through the haze. You're insane. Voss smirked without looking. Took you this long to figure that out? Admiral Cato sighed, stepping into view. His expression was somewhere between relief and disbelief. You just kicked a hornet's nest the size of a star system. Voss shrugged, regretting it immediately as pain flared through his torso. Yeah, well. Someone had to. Cato studied him, then exhaled. You changed everything today. Voss's smirk faded. No, he murmured. I just bought us time. Cato nodded grimly. And what do we do with that time? Voss closed his eyes, listening to the quiet hum of the ship around him. Then he opened them. We get ready. Final scene, unknown Kthari War Council. Far from human space, in the heart of the Dominion, the remaining warlords gathered. Shadows flickered across the chamber, tension crackling in the air. A single screen hovered above them. It played a loop of Commander Rourke Voss standing over Zalter's body. You wanted a reason to fear humanity? His bloodied face filled the screen, eyes burning with unyielding fire. Here it is. The warlords watched in silence. Then, one of them spoke. Prepare the fleets.